saw Oblivion, the new Tom Cruise movie. Also, the new movie by Joseph, is it Kosinski? Did Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
He basically, that was his first film. He did a short film for Tron, but then he did Tron Legacy, which was well received, not necessarily financially through the box office, but a lot of people enjoyed it. And so this was a screenplay that sort of like Disney fought for a while, and a couple other people were trying to get involved in it. And I can't remember, was it Paramount? Or no, Universal, I think, ended up getting it. But there's a lot I can say, and there's a lot I won't say, which are kind of the same. So I'll say a few things about it.
All right.
Great visuals, just like Tron Legacy. Just start to finish. Some really impressive things that sort of keep you at attention for the most part during the movie. Tom Cruise is actually really good in this movie, especially in the first, I would say, half of the movie. You essentially just follow him around. The story is essentially, it's an isolation kind of story to start off with. He and this woman are hired to monitor the Earth after it's been attacked by this group of aliens. And essentially, the humans won the war, but the planet didn't really survive very well. So basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to gather enough resources so that everyone can head to Titan and live there. And so they're just hanging out on the planet, him and this woman, and he just sort of flies around and scouts locations and makes sure everything is, running okay, because essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to absorb all the water out of the ocean and convert it into energy. And so his job is to just, fly around in his little I don't know what you would call it. It's a spaceship kind of.
The setup sounds almost a little bit like Moon, maybe?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of different movies in it. And that is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. A lot of 70s sci-fi is sort of referenced in this quite a bit, particularly towards the end. It gets very, or at least it tries to be very 2001, and that kind of hurts the movie a little bit. But essentially, the planet still has these things on it they're called scavs, basically scavengers, that are still sort of causing trouble. So he has to go around and sort of maintain these robots, these sort of things that fly around and also help him sort of keep track of things. And, Morgan Freeman shows up, and there's all this craziness that happens after that. That's essentially where the movie kind of loses itself, is when more people are introduced to the movie, more characters other than just sort of Tom Cruise and his female companion. The third act is pretty thin, I feel like, because it's just trying to be something it really shouldn't even attempt to be, which I don't want to talk about, because it's once you sort of figure out what's happening halfway through the movie, and it's pretty obvious, you kind of get things figured out. So I don't want to sort of imply anything, so that if you're watching the movie, you're like, oh yeah, now I know everything that happens. But I really, like I said, I really enjoy the isolation part of the movie, just sort of Tom Cruise going around sort of, he keeps having these memories of things that, he actually never experienced. He's having these dreams. He's seeing this other woman that he doesn't know who she is. And that sort of leads to, things happening in the movie to where it gets kind of interesting. It's interesting, but it just doesn't, it just kind of like Tron Legacy. It was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
It kind of just like,
It needs to turn into an action movie, it thinks.
Yeah, exactly, which it really didn't. It didn't, and it didn't even need to turn into like this uber surreal, cerebral movie. It just needed to be what it was at the beginning, and it was pretty interesting, I thought. But Tom Cruise is never going to be one of those actors that can sort of pull off the everyday man role at this point in his career, but he almost gets there in this movie until the third act, and it's just kind of like, why? You were doing such a good job.
Did you see there was something released? I think Cameron Crowe released it on his blog of Tom Cruise's notes on Jerry Maguire.
I did, and I had a hard time believing if that was true or not.
See, that's, I heard people say, oh, totally, that totally sounds like Tom Cruise. It almost sounded like a joke to me.
It sounded very satirical to me.
Yeah.
Up until a certain point. I got it, and then it was like the last page, I was like, this has to be a joke.
The last scene to be him running.
Just running.
Yeah. And then, Renee Zellweger's line, instead of like, You Had Me at Hello was you run really fast
Yeah.
or something like that. That was like,
Yeah.
I don't buy that. I don't know if I buy
Yeah,
it.
I
But-
did see that.
But that almost sounds like something that could have happened. Like
Sure.
somebody at some point, maybe not Tom Cruise, but somebody said, you know what, this is Tom Cruise. We got to do something big with Tom Cruise.
Right. And so, again, it's like Tom Cruise always, tries to play these characters where he's like an everyday guy in not so everyday situations. Like even Top Gun is like that. It's like, okay, he's sort of an everyday guy, but he flies fighter jets in this very specific group of people. It's like, okay, and he pulls it off. And so I really enjoyed this role. A lot of people were really concerned about him sort of being in a science fiction movie. I mean, he's done a couple other movies already.
Sure.
Like Minority Report was very sci-fi. This is sort of the next sort of scale from that because, it does involve sort of spaceships, whereas Minority Report was sort of more settled in the current culture, not so distant future. And so does this movie. I think it's 2070, something like that. But worth a rental, I think, when it comes around. I think it's worth checking out. The other movie
A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.